Something topical and relevant, Kyle? You're saying that German folklore is fun to review, but not necessarily on everyone's mind these days? How dare you, Kyle? How dare you? Fine. Let's kick it off with a true story then. Kyle. DarbyCast WildCard Friday. And let's just get right into it. I'm a sucker for fiction. Regard the last episode about Rapunzel. The episode entitled, Hey Babe, Nice Hair. There's a lot of modern parallels that go with that, but sometimes people want something that's a little bit more explicit. It's like, can you just tell the truth about the things going on in the world? And then I say, well, where do I start? I could literally talk about anything right now, and I'm sure it would go kind of counter to the manufactured reality of whatever some people are living in. But let me tell you a fun story before we kick this all off. I have a friend. He and I used to write TV shows together and go around to studios pitching them. I developed what I thought was going to be the hottest reality show to ever hit the digital shorts market. It wasn't made for network television. We needed a condensed format because people have no attention spans these days. That weeds a lot of people out of the DarbyCast, I'd imagine. The fact that episodes are longer than 35 seconds. People are just like, over it. But let me tell you about one of the greatest shows that was ever concocted in that creative partnership. The show's title, 911 Gay Babysitter. And it was a reality show where women who were apprehensive about gays would sit in a trailer and watch a gay housekeeper watch their children and then comment on how delighted they were and be like, wow, Sebastian, you're doing such a good job. I didn't think he could do it. Why that show came up? Unclear. Was there any lack of gay shows out there? Certainly not. Was there a lack of babysitter shows? Perhaps. Was there a lack of shows where idiots would comment on things? No. But you put all three of those things together and boom, you have 911 Gay Babysitter. Unique and dynamic. At least that's what we thought. Now, mind you, neither my creative partner nor I are gay or are dialed in with the gay community in any sort of meaningful way. But we took a shot anyway, and that speaks to our courage. It does. So we set a meeting at ABC Studios because we needed budget for this. We couldn't take it to History Channel, although they would have done a good job. Our idea for the show was not compatible with the History Channel's current trajectory, which is we would need 911 Gay Alien Babysitter presented by the Aztecs and Oikos Greek yogurt. That wasn't the idea. But ABC dialed in. We knew ABC was our target. So I started feverishly emailing random junior production assistants and eventually weaseled my way in to get a meeting with a guy named Ridley who went by RJ. And I totally understood why he went by RJ. His name was spelled Riddleigh. Ridley. And it's like, oh man, that sucks. I wish we could have addressed that elephant in the room. So we got this meeting, my buddy and I, and we went in there guns blazing and we're like, listen, Ridley. And he's like, call me RJ. It turns out he was gay. And two brutish straight guys trying to sell something to a gay guy doesn't work exceptionally well if the product would suggest that we had an intimate knowledge of anything related to that lifestyle. But we went in and we're like, hey, Ridley. He's like, just call me RJ. And then I took it a step further and I immediately addressed him as like, all right, Arj. And he didn't appreciate that at all. I'm like, come on, that plays, right, man? So the meeting was off to a terrible start. Did that mean that I would revert back to his requested name of RJ? No, it doesn't. Although I saw him visibly recoil in a very subtle way. I was like, Arj, we got a show that's going to do things to the world of entertainment that nobody's ever seen before. And we had this pitch lined up, ready to go. This was a little bit earlier in our careers, so we didn't really know a damn thing about selling a TV show, adapting it to the person we were selling it to. That's a sales lesson, and it's not even Economics Wednesday. We went in and we're like, Arj. A lot of gays are sexual predators, and that's got to stop. The stigma about it, not the actual phenomenon there. It's the stigma. Can't stand it. And he had a mixed response to that, but he didn't shut down the meeting, which in hindsight is kind of confusing. Why did he allow the meeting to go on? Because my buddy and I, we were dressed well. We cleaned up. RJ may have been aroused. So we keep hammering this home. We're like, imagine this, Arj. My buddy even got in on it. Just totally took point on Arj. Like, you know what, Arj, if I may, I'm more of the bus expert of this. Let me tell you about this bus. So Arj, air conditioning. Have you heard of it? Arj was underwhelmed. Say, hey, we get 5 women, conservative women, who are not really open to the idea of random guys watching their kids. Kyle, silence your phone. This is episode 102, and you didn't silence your phone. What's going on? But let's get back to it. Kyle, my buddy's describing this bus in illustrious detail. He's saying air conditioned, leather seats, lots of cameras so we can see reaction shots of these women being pleasantly surprised by the gays watching their kids. And then he says, we're going to do some pre-vetting to make sure that the babysitters that we cast are not pedophiles. We thought that was a major selling point, but it didn't go over well. It didn't. It totally didn't. But we were such hustlers back then that we continued the pitch. I was like, Arj, I can tell you're not quite sold yet. And my buddy pipes in again. He's like, yeah, Arj, what's the deal? Every time we yelled the name Arj in his face, just because we were excited and overly caffeinated, he recoiled a little bit. I don't know if this guy's ever had a meeting like this before. In fact, to this day, he must look back upon that meeting and say, nobody in this world is so radically insensitive. And we weren't trying to be offensive. We were just 2 crazy dreamers trying to put out something worthwhile. Had that show been produced, would I have watched it? No, I wouldn't have, because it doesn't interest me at all. Which prompts the question in all of your minds, why did you write it? Why did you write that? Because we were trying to hop on all this social justice crap and monetize it at the time. Not because we were cowards or because we actually cared, but because we were greedy. We were like, maybe we make a couple bucks on 911 gay babysitter. And it didn't happen. What a mess. Fast forward, now you have the DarbyCast, which has 0 commercial viability because, truth be told, I don't know if I've ever really gone hard on social justice here because I don't care that much. I care about criminal justice and strong nuclear families. Doesn't matter what you look like, just pursue those things, adhere to those things, and things end up working out. What's the point of the story that I just told you? Don't sacrifice your integrity just to make a buck. And boy, are there a lot of people doing that these days. Walking into the office and being like, can we get a couple more trans people in here? This place is a little too straight for my taste. Privately, they're thinking to themselves, like, what am I talking about? It is kind of a hostage situation, though, right? And Arj was a good dude at his core. I liked Arj a lot. He was friendly and polite, and I don't think he was a sexual predator. I don't. But some people might think that about him. And I'm like, tough break, man. Tough break. I don't know if you can correct that to fundamentally alter people's core beliefs unless you get to them at a very young age and bomb them with propaganda 24/7, which seems to be going on right now. Bunch of non-binary 3-year-olds running around and being like, who wants to get a BJ? And I'm like, was I doing that at 3? I don't think I was. I don't think any of my friends were either. These kids are watching weird YouTube channels. I need to tie this all together, don't I, Kyle? Have I said a bunch of things that are grossly offensive? I must have, right? But I was merely describing where I was at the time. I wanted to make it big in the TV industry for one reason or another. It was fun. I got to write idiot shows with my buddy in between sessions of drinking beers, playing rugby, and selling clothing around the country, which I know nothing about. I know nothing of selling clothes. That's another true story. I used to be a national sales director for a clothing brand, and I would travel around the country to trade shows and fashion shows and try to get linked up with people and sound like I knew what the hell I was talking about. Like, hey, what's up, Javier? Can I call you Javi? And then Javier would say, no, you certainly can't. And I'm like, you got it, Jay. But I would try to say, like, this fabric is soft, Jay. What do you think about that? Meanwhile, what I didn't realize is the fashion industry is very much like Hollywood, and that it's run by the currency of sexual favors, and I wasn't willing to do that. I was like, no, Jay, if I'm going to sell these yoga pants to you, I'm going to do it without letting you rape me. That was never on the table. He never said anything like that. But that was a little bit later in my career where I was like, I got to develop some values and really stick to them. You cannot rape me for a sale. That's not going to happen. I don't want it. Talk about personal development out of me. That's a self-call. So let's go back to the messaging that you drew out of the Arj story. There's a couple takeaways that I would imagine all of you, the DarbyCast doctors, have right now where it's, wow, I loved your courage. First off, going in there, that's admirable. Second, I don't like that you were doing that simply for profit and that your heart wasn't in it all the way. Sure, you went in guns blazing confident, but you were doing it for the wrong reasons. And I agree with that. It was just a cash grab. And how many people are doing that these days? They're going into the office, like I said, and spouting off weird social justice-y newspeak, being like, why isn't my boss a disabled black lesbian? This is horse shit. That sounds partially hilarious to me. Like if I were plugged into a corporation, I think I would overdo it. Just show up one day and be like, listen, this company is sickeningly homogenous. I'm going to do my part in righting the wrongs of that evil. I have an announcement to make. Let us have a meeting and get in the boardroom and tell everybody I am a gender fluid black woman. That's who I am. I need you to know that. And then in front of everybody, just pull a purse out of a briefcase and sling it over my shoulder and be like, address me accordingly. You fucking bigots. I wonder if there's people doing that at this point just to troll people at their companies. They're so up to their eyeballs in institutionally endorsed hysteria and insanity that they're like, what do I care? You know what? Let's just go for it. Oh, you only celebrate Juneteenth on the 10th? I celebrate it all month, you stupid son of a bitch. And then you walk out for the month and you say, you pay me or I'm going to sick the NAACP on your ass. And companies kind of have backed themselves into a corner, haven't they? Where they almost have to capitulate to the demands of crazy people. So what's stopping people who are working at companies now from acting that way? You show up one day in zebra face paint and say, I identify as an indigenous female zebra of the Serengeti. And if you try to tell me otherwise, that will be very problematic. Because I'll film you telling me off, you racist speciesist piece of trash. Oh, you sexist too, I would imagine. Fuck you. Part of that sounds fun. I would get over it after a week, but maybe I should apply for some jobs at some companies and just go through the interview process. Sure, I already have multiple jobs and callings, and I don't really have the space or the desire to go job searching. But wouldn't it be fun to go to a company of over 500 employees where you know they've had a couple seminars this past year? Everyone who is a dude or a white dude or a straight dude, stand up. And it's like, what are we doing here? And then the liaison, the diversity liaison says like, okay, anybody who's not white, sit down. You're fine. That was a trick. Okay, guys, go ahead and sit down if you were standing for some reason, even though I didn't ask you to. Straight white guys, you're going to look underneath your chair and pull out a bucket of poo and you're going to pour it on your head. You see why that's important for all of us to heal? Take responsibility one time, okay? You evil fucks. Oh, I'm looking at you, Jerry. Jerry, I've heard about you. I put an especially large bucket of poo under your chair. That's another thing I wonder about. It's like when 55-year-old balding dudes named Jerry are just going to take the bucket of shit and just start tossing it. Not on their own head, but just be like, I just cannot deal with this anymore. Joke's over. How often are they doing these meetings, I wonder, at big companies? Go to Coca-Cola boardroom. All right, 3 times a week, Jerry. Keep pouring that poop bucket on yourself. Let me tell you something, Jerry. Just key in on Jerry every time. So, Jerry, let's talk about what you did. You're responsible for Nazism and the Holocaust, obviously, as a starter. Also responsible for slavery. That wasn't okay, Jerry. Why did you do that? Jerry, let me tell you something else that you did. You colonized the entire world and committed atrocities wherever you went. Your ancestors did. We got to take you out, Jerry, because they're not available for us to hurt or pour poo on. You understand, Jerry? You understand why this is correcting some hurt people's attitudes? Do you understand how this is doing all the right things? Jerry, I'm going to send you home with a pamphlet as well, so you can give it to your kids and tell them how they're pieces of shit too. You better tell them, Jerry. If you don't tell your kids that they're pieces of garbage, responsible for everything evil in the world, then you're fucking fired, Jerry. Jerry, look back under your seat. There's a second bucket of poo for you today. Meanwhile, there's people in the audience who are like, oh, thank you. This ours. We needed this so much to heal. We needed this. Now that Jerry understands the pain he's been causing everyone every day, we can get back to gossiping and trying to get people fired and doing everything that we continue to do that's really upsetting just about everybody. One day, Jerry's going to snap. What's going to be the demographic to snap first? That's what I wonder. Is it going to be young Asian dudes who are like, my test scores were perfect and I should have gotten into Harvard. I have not had a social engagement in my entire life. And then somebody came up to me and told me I was white and that I couldn't go. I don't know. That could be a thing. This world of ours. I think I could do it, though, for a while. You know what? Now that I think about it, I think I could do it for over a week if I worked at a company. Constantly call people out on the most trivial nonsense. I could get good at it. Sure, it would crush my soul, and deep down I might get the sense that I was a well-reviled lunatic at the end of the day. But that's not why I'd be doing it. I'd be doing it so I could take it so far over the top that somebody'd be like, what are you even talking about? Which, in a lot of cases, should be said in most of these situations. Like, what are you talking about? Sir or ma'am or zer? I identify as a dog. My pronouns are rough and bark. Notice there weren't any doggy doors in this office. What the fuck is that about, huh? Dog people like myself have struggled for years. And I thought this company was progressive, okay? I thought I could come here and be myself and be safe. Meanwhile, the people, the highest ups at the Oral-B toothbrush company are like, aren't we supposed to be selling toothbrushes? What have we gotten ourselves into? But it's too late for that, or so it would seem. Here's a good question and maybe a positive note to wrap the episode up on, because I think I've just spewed a bunch of nonsense. Not too much nonsense, just the right amount. Goldilocks zone. And speaking of Goldilocks and the Three Bears might be a folklore tale worth investigating. But check this. How do you get the people who are unironically super stoked on living in their crazy person reality? How do you let them down easy and be like, I'm really sorry that you kind of fell for all the programming and propaganda? The U.S. government has been experimenting with mind control since the 1950s, and they're pretty damn good at it now. And it would appear as though you've fallen prey to this incredibly well-developed mind control situation that is everywhere now. It's in your pocket. It's on every screen. You cannot escape it. The only way to escape it is to maybe have your circuit board overloaded by some hero willing to step up and say, there aren't enough doggy doors in here. And when somebody says, sir, what are you talking about? I'd be like, that's bark to you. HR, can somebody protect me? As soon as that person says, well, this is ridiculous, and be like, what else is ridiculous? Keep going. I would love if I got really good at deprogramming people, because I know a lot of people that I really love and I miss them dearly. And I would love to figure out what that secret sauce was. What's the perfect recipe? Is it 911 gay babysitter, where people are like, that's not a good idea? I wonder what Arj is up to now. What if he had a complete turnaround and just was like, those guys made a lot of interesting points. I'm going to do things differently. I don't know what that looks like. Maybe there's multiple ways to do it, to shake people out of it. Maybe you're such an idiot and so pig-headed, like I used to be. Arguably, I still am quite a bit. But maybe you're such an idiot and you just go so hard that people are like, I'm short-circuiting. And then that is a growth-facilitating powwow. Can I say powwow, Kyle? Is it abusive to Native Americans? It couldn't be. Why? Because I'm a Native American. Also a dog. And a zebra. And a lesbian and I'm black. Kyle, respect my individuality. You have to. You have to, Kyle, or you're fired. What a world, right? That's what's going on. So we're going to need some people who are either really rough around the edges and just ready to go for it. There is a very fine line between bravery and stupidity. I flirt with it all the time, and I encourage you to do the exact same thing. To just go out there and take chances. Maybe you role play real hard as a dog at your company. And when people pass by you and don't pat you on the head, be like, hey, so what was that about? Notice you didn't give me any treats today, nor did you call me a good boy. I mean, a good bark. You'll mess up sometimes. You'll kind of break character. But if you practice enough and hold people hostage with nonsense, so absurd that they see cracks in the veneer of their reality, then maybe it helps. I say maybe it helps because honestly, this is definitely going to backfire if you actually did it, but it would still be awesome. You would be a hero to so many. I feel like there's, 90% of the population that's like, things are being pushed a little too far and quesadillas shouldn't be $14. And did Joe Biden just shit his pants? And Kamala Harris, boy, is she possessed. I feel like most people, like literally 90% of the country, it doesn't matter what you identify with as your designated victim group or otherwise. I think most people are like, geez, there's some pretty weird stuff going down. People are too afraid to do things. And in times like this, the only thing to do is to be a coward or a hero. Pick one, coward or hero. Coward or hero. Being a hero sometimes means being a dog. Showing up in leopard print pants and be like, rawr, right? I think you have to take it to that level. Some people need to start identifying as ghosts or vampires or zombies or take it 4 steps too far until people are like, what are we doing here? Because there's still some people who are on board who are so captivated by the propaganda mind control apparatus that they are convinced that they are in the in-group when it's like, no, you are maybe 10% of the population. You think you're a big majority, but there aren't as many people out there who are really fired up on you as you think. Sure, you turn on the TV and people are like, today we had another win for transgender jaguars, and that's important. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on right now, but at the core of it, you just have to tell the truth on a daily basis. Go up to people and be like, come on. I don't think I can publish this episode, Kyle. A, I don't know if there was a cohesive message. B, it is riddled with too much of stuff. We should talk about voter suppression, right? Yeah. People can't figure out how to get an ID. And stopping people who can't figure out how to get an ID from voting, so inappropriate. So inappropriate. That's another episode, though. We'll talk about voting stuff. Why not? We'll go for it. But that's DarbyCast WildCard Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Let's just end on a cliffhanger and a very emotionally unsatisfying ending. DarbyCast.